Welcome to another deep dive. This time, we're taking a trip back to the era of frosted tips and boy bands because we're diving deep into the history of NSYNC.
Oh, the group that had us all singing Bye Bye Bye.
That's the one, and we'll be pulling all the info from their Wikipedia page.
Sounds like a fun nostalgia trip. Are you ready to dig into the history of this iconic boy band?
Absolutely. I've been looking forward to this one, and honestly, their journey to the top is fascinating. It's not your typical overnight success story.
No, not at all. And actually, one of the first things that surprised me when I was researching this is that they found major success in Europe first.
That's right. Before they were taking over American Airways, they were topping charts in Germany.
It's true,
Hmm.
but to understand how that happened, we need to go back to the beginning, to the very formation of the group.
Okay, so take us back. Where does it all start?
Well, it all begins with Chris Kirkpatrick. He actually had his sights set on forming a boy band after seeing the success of the Backstreet Boys.
Aha, so Lou Pearlman strikes again. He was the mastermind behind both groups, right?
He was. Kirkpatrick saw the Backstreet Boys' success and thought, hey, I could put a group together too. So he starts holding auditions, searching for the perfect blend of talent and charisma.
And it was during this process that he crossed paths with the young Justin Timberlake, fresh off the Mickey Mouse Club.
Talk about a game changer. Timberlake was already making a name for himself, and his addition to the group brought instant recognition and star power.
And Timberlake brings JC Chasez into the mix. They had a history of performing and writing music together.
Exactly. They were already honing their songwriting skills, which would become crucial to NSYNC's success.
So we've got Kirkpatrick, Timberlake, and Chasez. We're getting closer to the NSYNC we know and love. Who's next to join the party?
Well, next up is Joey Fatone. He actually knew Chris Kirkpatrick from their days working at Universal Studios in Orlando.
Okay, so they had a bit of history together. That probably helped with that whole group chemistry thing.
For sure. And with Fatone on board, they started to really gel as a group.
Hmm.
But here's the thing. They actually had a different fifth member at first.
Wait, really? So the original lineup wasn't the one we all came to know?
Nope. The original bass singer was a guy named Jason Galasso.
And what happened to him? Why didn't he stick around?
Well, from what I've read, he just wasn't into the whole teen idol thing.
Really? He turned down a chance to be an NSYNC because he didn't want to be a teen idol?
Seems like it. And that decision opened the door for Lance Bass to join the group. Talk about a sliding doors moment.
Wow. That's a serious what if in music history. But so with Lance Bass joining the lineup, this is when they head over to Europe, right?
Right. They signed a deal with BMG Ariola Munich and released their self-titled debut album in 1997. And get this, it goes #1 in Germany.
That's incredible. I think most people don't even realize that NSYNC had this whole European chapter in their story.
I know, it's not the typical trajectory for American boy bands.
It seems like a very calculated move, though, like a strategic decision to build a foundation before tackling the American market.
I think you're right. The music industry is all about strategy, targeting different markets with different approaches.
And that European success gave them a springboard to jump into the U.S. market.
Absolutely. But their American debut wasn't an immediate explosion like some might think.
Oh, really? So their first single, I Want You Back, didn't immediately shoot to #1.
It did okay on the charts, but it wasn't that massive breakthrough hit. Their first U.S. album was kind of floating around, Not quite a flop, but not a smash hit either.
So what changed? What catapulted them to that next level of fame in the U.S.?
Well, there's one specific event that really changed everything, and it's kind of a funny story. Remember that Disney Channel concert we talked about?
Oh, yeah, that iconic concert. It was a huge moment for them.
Well, you'll never believe this.
Yeah.
It was originally supposed to be a Backstreet Boys concert.
No way. Really? So how did NSYNC end up with that slot?
Well, Brian Luttrell from the Backstreet Boys needed to have heart surgery.
Oh, wow, that's serious. So the Backstreet Boys had to pull out of the concert.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And NSYNC was offered the spot. It was a golden opportunity.
And boy, did they take advantage of it. That concert was a game changer for them.
It put them in front of a massive audience, and it seemed like everyone was talking about NSYNC after that concert.
And that's when their album finally takes off and shoots up the charts. It's amazing how a single performance can change a group's trajectory that drastically.
It's the power of visibility. And of course, Tearin Up My Heart becomes their signature hit.
Oh, that song. It's an instant time machine back to the late 90s.
Right. And don't forget, they followed that up with a holiday album, Home for Christmas, which also made it into the Billboard Top 10.
So they had 2 albums in the top 10 simultaneously. That's almost unheard of. Even for major artists, they were everywhere.
It was NSYNC fever. They had captured the hearts of America. But then, their story takes an interesting turn. Remember their lawsuit against Lou Pearlman?
Oh, yeah, that was huge news back then. They sued him for shady business practices, right?
Essentially, yes. They accused him of withholding their earnings and basically taking advantage of them. They were young and at the peak of their fame, and they decided to take on this powerful figure who was instrumental in their success.
That must have taken some serious guts. What did they risk by suing him? Was it purely about the money, or was there something more at stake?
It was definitely about financial fairness, but it was also a statement. They were standing up to a system that often exploits young artists.
So their lawsuit wasn't just about them, it was about holding the industry accountable. It must have been a difficult decision.
It was a risky move, for sure. They could have lost everything. But it also showed that they weren't just puppets. They were willing to fight for what they believed in.
And in doing so, they exposed the darker side of the music industry. It wasn't all glitz and glamour.
Exactly. It was a wake-up call for a lot of people. Ultimately, NSYNC won their case against Pearlman.
Which led them to sign with Jive Records, right?
Yep. And that move sets the stage for the No Strings Attached era, which is where their story really explodes.
And that's a story for another time. Okay, so NSYNC has broken free from Lou Pearlman, they've signed with Jive Records, and they're about to release No Strings Attached. This album becomes a monster hit, selling over 2.4 million copies in its first week.
It's crazy, right? Think about it. In just 7 days, they sold more albums than most artists sell in their entire careers.
It's mind-blowing. So what was it about No Strings Attached that made it such a phenomenon? What were some of the key ingredients in this recipe for success?
Well, a few things come to mind. First, you have to remember the musical landscape of the year 2000. Pop music was having a serious moment.
Oh, yeah. Britney Spears, Christina Aguilera, the Backstreet Boys, everyone was blasting pop music.
Exactly. And NSYNC was right there in the thick of it, perfectly positioned to capitalize on this pop music explosion. But it wasn't just about being in the right place at the right time. They also evolved their sound, bringing a fresh vibe to the boy band formula.
They weren't just rehashing their old sound, were they? How did they evolve musically on No Strings Attached?
Well, they stepped up their game in terms of production. They worked with some big-name producers like Teddy Riley, who'd produced Michael Jackson and other huge R&B artists.
Oh, wow. That's a serious step up.
It was. They were pushing the boundaries of what a boy band could sound like, blending pop with R&B, and even incorporating some hip-hop influences.
So they were maturing their sound, adding more depth and complexity. And I'm guessing they had more creative control on this album too, right?
You got it. They were more involved in the songwriting and production process. They weren't just singing what other people wrote for them. They were becoming artists in their own right.
That's a big shift from their earlier work. And I think that newfound creative freedom shines through on No Strings Attached. You can hear their personalities coming through in the music.
Absolutely. And let's not forget the lead single, Bye Bye Bye. It became an anthem, a cultural moment.
Oh, yeah. That song was everywhere. Everyone was singing it, dancing to it. I still remember trying to learn that iconic choreography from the music video.
Me too. And that music video, it was a masterpiece.
Yeah.
The puppet strings, the synchronized dancing, that whole futuristic vibe.
Yeah.
It perfectly captured the energy and the message of the song.
It was a statement. And speaking of statements, they performed at the Super Bowl halftime show that year.
Yep. They shared the stage with Aerosmith, no less.
No, that's a crossover moment. Performing at the Super Bowl is a sign you've truly made it in American pop culture.
Right. It's the biggest stage of the country, and they were there, rocking out alongside a legendary rock band.
And they didn't stop there. They even performed at the Winter Olympics.
It was a whirlwind year for them. They were on top of the world, seemingly unstoppable. But, as we know, even at the peak of their success, there were things happening behind the scenes that would eventually lead to their hiatus.
That's right. We can't forget about Justin Timberlake's growing solo ambitions.
It was the elephant in the room, wasn't it?
Yeah.
He was clearly ready to explore his own musical identity, and that inevitably created some tension within the group.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine how the other members must have felt. It's one thing to support a bandmate's solo aspirations, but it's another when it feels like it's happening at the expense of the group dynamic.
And it seems like there might have been some communication issues. Some members felt left out of the loop regarding Timberlake's plans.
It's a classic tale of a band navigating individual ambitions alongside collective success. It's not an easy thing to do.
No, it's not. And even though they released another hit album, Celebrity, in 2001, it felt like the end of an era was approaching.
It was the end of a chapter, but not the end of their story. In fact, NSYNC would go on to reunite multiple times, reminding us why we fell in love with them in the first place. So NSYNC goes on this indefinite hiatus after Celebrity. It felt like the end for a lot of fans, but thankfully that wasn't the end of their story, was it?
Oh, no, not at all. They might have stepped away from the spotlight for a while, but NSYNC didn't disappear entirely. In fact, they've had some pretty epic reunions over the years.
Okay, so walk us through some of those reunions. Where do we start?
Well, how about that surprise performance at the 2013 MTV Video Music Awards? I mean, talk about a blast from the past.
Oh, yeah, I remember watching that. It was electric. Everyone went crazy when they came out on stage.
I know. It was such a short performance, just a quick medley of Girlfriend and Bye Bye Bye. But it was enough to send fans into a frenzy.
It was pure nostalgia. That's the thing about music. It has this incredible power to transport you right back to a specific time and place.
Absolutely. And for a lot of people, NSYNC's music is tied to their teenage years, to first loves, to friendships.
Yeah.
It's powerful stuff.
Yeah, it really is. And that VMA performance proved that even after all those years apart, NSYNC still held a special place in people's hearts.
It sparked a wave of NSYNC love that was impossible to ignore.
Speaking of comebacks, we can't forget about their 2019 Coachella performance with Ariana Grande.
Oh, that was epic.
Yeah.
Ariana was practically giddy with excitement to be sharing the stage with them.
I know. And seeing them perform Tearin Up My Heart together, it was just pure joy.
I think it was a special moment for both NSYNC and Ariana's fans.
It was. And it was also a reminder that they could still bring the energy and the fun to a live performance, even without Justin Timberlake.
That's right. They proved they were more than just a memory. They were a group that could still captivate an audience and inspire a new generation of fans.
And speaking of legacies, they received a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame in 2018.
Oh, yeah, that was huge. A Hollywood star, that's a true testament to their impact, not just on music, but on pop culture as a whole.
Absolutely. It solidified their place in entertainment history. And then, just when we thought they were done, bam, new music.
First, a new song for the Trolls movie in 2023.
Better Place, which, by the way, debuted at number 25 on the Billboard Hot 100.
That's impressive, especially considering it was their first new song in over 2 decades.
I know. It shows that people were still hungry for NSYNC. And then, that same year, they performed at a Justin Timberlake concert in LA.
And debuted another brand new song called Paradise. Talk about a treat for fans.
It felt like a mini reunion tour. And then Chasez starts hinting at future projects, saying the band is always talking about doing more together.
It's exciting. There's definitely buzz in the air.
It feels like the NSYNC story is far from over, doesn't it?
Well, who knows what the future holds. But one thing's for sure, they've left a lasting mark on music history.
Absolutely. And we can't forget about the enduring power of a good song. Even Bye 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 had a resurgence in 2024 after being featured in the Deadpool and Wolverine movie.
It's proof that their music is timeless. It still resonates with people today.
We've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive, from their humble beginnings to European success, those legal battles, the peak of their fame, and now these amazing reunions and hints of what's to come. What a journey it's been.
I know, right? It's a reminder that even within the world of manufactured pop groups, there can be real talent, hard work, and lasting impact.
And before we sign off, we always like to leave our listeners with a little something to think about. So here's a question for you. If NSYNC does make a full comeback, could they recapture the magic of their peak? Or is the boy band era truly a thing of the past?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I mean, the music landscape has changed a lot since their heyday. It would definitely be a challenge.
It would. But hey, stranger things have happened. I guess only time will tell.
That's the beauty of it all, isn't it? We get to wait and see what happens next.
That's right. And in the meantime, if you're feeling nostalgic and want to dive deeper into NSYNC's history, be sure to check out their full Wikipedia page. It's a fascinating read. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the world of NSYNC.